Hi, I'm Hal Roberts. This is Bridge City News. Here's some of the top stories we've been following. Alberta Premier Danielle Smith swore in her new cabinet today. We have details of some of the big appointments. As the wildfires continue to burn in Canada, we hear from a volunteer from the Salvation Army who's helping firefighters and evacuees in a special way. And a bomb scare this week at a southern Alberta high school forced the evacuation of both students and teachers.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. Alberta Premier Danielle Smith's new cabinet was sworn in today. The UCP won a majority government last month with 49 seats. There will be 25 members of cabinet, which is down from the previous 27. Danielle Smith is not only Premier, but also the Minister of Intergovernmental Relations. Nate Horner was named the new Finance Minister and President of the Treasury Board. Lethbridge East MLA Nathan Neudorf was named the Minister of Affordability and Utilities, along with the Vice Chair of the Treasury Board. Adriana LaGrange was named Health Minister. Dimitrios Nicolaides is the Minister of Education, and Rajan Sani is the new Minister of Advanced Education. Mike Ellis is the Minister of Public Safety and Emergency Services, along with the new Deputy Premier. Rick Wilson is the Minister of Indigenous Relations. Brian Jean, meanwhile, is the new Minister of Energy and Minerals. Todd Lowen picked up the Forestry and Parks portfolio, and R.J. Sigurdsson is the Minister of Agriculture and Irrigation. Jason Nixon is Seniors, Community and Social Services Minister. Environment and Protected Areas Minister is Rebecca Schultz, and the Justice Minister is Mickey Amory. A full list of all of today's appointments can be found on the Bridge City News Facebook page. You know, after the swearing-in ceremony, Premier Danielle Smith was asked about the committee of the defeated UCP MLAs in Edmonton. It's a group Smith wants to hear from who will convey concerns from Edmontonians and issues impacting our provincial capital. A reporter asked Premier Smith if this committee was a slap in the face to the Edmonton NDP MLAs who were voted in.
We have three excellent cabinet ministers from the Edmonton area: Cyril Churton, Dale Nally, and Nate Glubish. They're going to be spearheading my outreach into Edmonton. We also have great relationships with Tim Cartmel and Sarah Hamilton, who are on our task force. And we're going to continue consulting with Mayor Sohi, who has written me letters and who often makes sure that I know his priorities. In addition, we have a number of staffers who live and work in Edmonton. I've got lots of opportunity to hear from Edmontonians about Edmontonians' priorities, and so I feel very confident that we're going to be able to make decisions for all Albertans.
More than 2,800 firefighting personnel continue to battle the wildfires here in Alberta. There are still 72 active wildfires, with many located in the central and northern regions of the province. Residents in the hamlet of Fort Chipewyan have still not been allowed to return to their homes as evacuation order remains in place. Officials say so far this year, Alberta has experienced 617 wildfires. During last year's wildfire season, from March to October, our province experienced 1,246 wildfires. Close to 131,000 hectares burned in 2022. One of the worst seasons in recent memory was 2019, which saw close to 900,000 hectares scorched by wildfires. Fire officials say 68% of the fires were caused by humans, while 32% were from lightning strikes. Stephen Roach is a volunteer with the Salvation Army. He works in their mobile kitchen while helping to provide meals for firefighters and those who've been displaced by wildfires. Roach says the stories he's hearing are simply heartbreaking.
People talking about losing everything that they own, that was very hard, like, especially when they left with the only thing they had was a small little bag and the clothes on their back. So that was very hard. It bothered me to see people in that state of, something that I've never seen before until I went up there, because I've always been on the other side of the fence. Like, I used to be a firefighter, so you see one side, and then I do this, and now I'm on the opposite side of it, trying to help the people that are very in distress.
Make sure you watch the full interview with the Salvation Army volunteer Stephen Roach and BCN's Jeanette Rocher coming up later in our broadcast. With the recent warm weather here in southern Alberta, many people are looking forward to driving off to a campground this weekend, maybe do a little bit of camping. Waterton Lakes National Park is no exception. The visitor experience manager for the park shared with Bridge City News if the campgrounds are full and if there's a potential fire hazard in the mountain regions.
The fire hazard is at moderate, and we wish to remind all visitors to Waterton Lakes National Park that any fires need to be in designated fire pits or in one of our kitchen shelters. Our town site campground has over 200 reservable sites, and we operate at full capacity from now until the end of the reservation period in the fall. And so we do anticipate that this weekend, like others in the summer, will be busy.
A watercraft and pedestrian trail between Waterton Lakes National Park and Glacier National Park will soon be reopened. Staff also say the Goat Hunt area will be ready for visitors by June 24th. While we experienced some light showers and lots of cloud cover in Lethbridge earlier today, Jeanette Rocher is now with a quick peek at the forecast. Jeanette, will things clear up a little if folks want to head out camping this weekend in southwestern Alberta?
Well, it does look like it's going to be a rainy weekend, Hal, on top of the 10 to 20 millimeters we were expecting today. We can expect another 60% chance of showers and risk of thunderstorms Friday night into Saturday. High of 24 degrees, though, on Saturday, along with a 20 to 40 kilometer per hour wind from the southeast. And then actually that rain's going to last right through Monday night. So it's going to be a very soggy weekend, Hal. I will be back later in the show, though, to tell you about the rest of the week, how that's shaping up.
Thanks so much, Jeanette. Fire officials in Nova Scotia are lifting evacuation orders in Shelburne County, even though the largest wildfire in the province's history is burning out of control. Officials say, however, that the 235 square kilometer fire has now spread since last weekend. The fire near Barrington Lake has forced more than 6,000 people from their homes and destroyed 60 homes and cottages. New firefighters have arrived from France to help join crews on the fire lines in Quebec. There are 141 fires burning in the province, including 127 in the southern half, where the Quebec government is focusing its firefighting efforts. Premier François Legault says the situation is expected to remain stable in the next couple of days, but it is not clear when the more than 13,000 people will be able to return to their homes. The folks from Environment Canada held a virtual news conference earlier today to discuss where a lot of the wildfires are burning and how the smoke is impacting air quality across Canada right now.
This is a satellite imagery that we took from this morning, and you can see there's a lot of cloud cover throughout Quebec and even Ontario. And the red triangles are showing you where the wildfires are across the region. And you can see there are lots north of the St. Lawrence and also lots of wildfires in northern Ontario. There's some just near the Ottawa Valley as well, but really it's a lot of wildfires, especially for this time of year. So this is two maps. The map on the left, we'll start with that. That is a snapshot of where the smoke will be on Saturday at around 2 p.m. And you can see the smoke over southern Ontario. That's shown by the gray, and also the forest fires that are still burning over western or northwestern Quebec. Now, the concentration level that the model is forecasting has really come down. It's only around 5 to 10 or even 10 to 20. In some places, there could be 20 to 40 micrograms per meters cube. So this is a concentration level of the particulate matter 2.5, and that is the pollutant that is coming from the smoke, and that's been blanketing much of the region earlier in the week. We still forecast some of it, but it will be of a lesser concentration level on Saturday.
Smoke from the wildfires in both Ontario and Quebec arrived in the U.S. capital. Many are taking it all in stride. Some tourists visiting Washington, D.C. say it's just something you have to learn to deal with.
We read in the news today that it's recommended to wear masks because the air was supposed to be really, really bad. We went outside. We expected it to be much worse than it actually is, but it feels safer with the mask on, especially when we're reading that the air quality is so terrible. And when we're looking around, the Washington Monument is basically not seeable from this point, so you definitely see that there's something in the air.
Although we see, more people than just ourselves with masks on, and that's a sign, I think, obvious sign that, there's too much junk in the air. I think the whole Northeast, at least, is used to having quite a bit of rain in the spring, and it hasn't happened.
Air Canada says it does not have to pay out any compensation to thousands of passengers affected by flight delays caused by computer problems. Company officials say the issue was outside of their control. Earlier this month, however, Transport Minister Omar Alghabra said Air Canada did, in fact, have an obligation to passengers affected by the computer glitch, says it was, in fact, within the airline's control. Since the war broke out in Ukraine over a year ago, Samaritan's Purse Canada has been on the ground providing relief to those affected. But with recent events, including a collapsed dam which caused massive flooding, the organization has been doubling down on those relief efforts. An official with Samaritan's Purse says 40,000 pounds worth of relief supplies have been airlifted to the affected area.
We are working with these partners who are actually doing water rescues for some of the families who have been stranded. We're doing distributions, and we actually just mobilized our DC-8 aircraft as well. That is going to be taking additional items to Ukraine to distribute. These include water filters, hygiene kits, blankets, other critical items that are going to be distributed to families who are in need in this area.
Hartung says they'll be on the ground in Ukraine for as long as it takes to help those in need. Members of the Lethbridge Police Service and Fire and Emergency Services were conducting a high-risk investigation earlier today along the 1700 block of 16th Avenue South. A man was arrested without incident and remains in police custody. Staff with the LPS told us there's currently no risk to the public and the investigation into the matter continues. Lethbridge police have laid charges in connection with an incident on Tuesday where a man barricaded himself inside of a north side home and refused to leave. Police say the critical incident response team was brought in when the 31-year-old man refused to leave. Police then set off tear gas, forcing the man to leave the home, at which time he was then arrested. Logan Conrad Richard Drake of Lethbridge is charged with failing to comply with his bail conditions and resisting a peace officer. Classes have resumed at J.T. Foster High School in Nanton following an unexpected bomb threat on Wednesday. At around 10 o'clock or 10:20 in the morning, the main office received a call from an unexpected caller in Edmonton saying there was a bomb at the school. Police were immediately notified and the school was quickly evacuated. The principal of the school says there are supports in place for students who might be feeling a little uneasy to return to class.
Any emotional upset that was immediately reported to myself or the counselor, and whatever support that was needed was provided. In the moments after the incident, of course, our primary concern is student safety. And then once the risk had subsided, now we turn our attention to make sure that students understand what happened and why we do things and why we believe the school is a safe place to be going forward.
After a thorough search by police, the investigation concluded that fortunately there was no bomb at the school. Most homeless in the city should have received a yellow bag to fill up with non-perishable food items by now for the Food Bank's annual Target Hunger campaign. Daniel McIntyre with the Interfaith Food Bank Society of Lethbridge says they're aiming to bring in 100,000 pounds worth of food this year to help meet the high demands here in our community.
Unfortunately, this year is going to last us an even shorter period of time just because so many people are asking for help right now. We are hoping that we will start to see a slight decline over the summertime, but we do know just with grocery prices right now, it's difficult for people to be able to keep enough food on the table.
Pickup of the yellow bags will be just after 10 a.m. on Saturday. E-bikes and e-scooters have become increasingly popular here in Lethbridge as of late. You might be wondering what happens if one of them actually stops working. Matthew Hallowell, the owner of Bike Lane, educated us on the importance of maintaining e-bikes.
We've got a few cool products that can sort of make a less safe bike a little more safe. We've got some hydraulic brake upgrades. We can put new discs on. We can check your disc bolts, make sure that there's Loctite on them, stuff like that. And we also do we do a lot of just kind of explaining and educating customers on this is what you've got and this is what you can expect out of it, and then how does that line up with their expectations and their life demands for it, right? Because we've got a lot of folks who are now commuting on e-bikes, and if you're commuting on it, you want this thing to be fairly reliable. You don't want to not be able to get to work that day, or you don't want to be having an accident on your way to work, right?
Some cool looking bikes. Neuron Mobility recently brought back its e-bikes and e-scooters to Lethbridge. Now in 2022, the company's two methods of transportation traveled a combined 430,000 kilometers here in our city. Wow. The fun-filled festivities of Coulee Fest are headed back to Lethbridge College coming up on September 16th. Now, last year's event brought out a total of 5,500 people for the day. Stephanie Savage, the alumni and engagement manager for the college, talked to us about what this year's event will actually look like.
People coming can expect to see a lot of families, a lot of students, and a lot of just engaging, exciting things happening, and an opportunity to see what's best about Lethbridge College. So at Coulee Fest, we always try to have some really good music. We try to do a really good mix of some up-and-coming artists, but also a lot of local representation. So people coming to Coulee Fest can expect to see some really exciting artists, and we're really excited to be working with some up-and-coming people in the music scene that I'm excited to bring to Lethbridge. So that's what people can expect.
Savage says a full list of the fun activities for Coulee Fest will be announced in the next few weeks. A young 12-year-old student is about to become the youngest Canadian to ever graduate from a university. Anthea Grace Patricia Dennis of Ottawa says she's proud to be graduating from the University of Ottawa with a bachelor's degree in biomedical science.
I can now say I have a bachelor's. My advice for people who are also young, gifted, smart, talented, don't let other people's expectations bring you down. So that's been a major obstacle for me everywhere I go. People will look at me on, for instance, the Zoom camera, and they have preconceived notions of how I talk, what I look like, the minute they see an email where I say I'm 12. And when I come to their lab or I come talk to them, they expect I'm going to sound young. They expect I'm going to be short, which I'm not. I'm 5'6". And so they are like so confused when they see me. They're like, "Are you sure?" Just part of when the schools before have asked me, "Are you sure you're actually X age?"
Just 12 years old. That's incredible. Well, we had lots of clouds and showers earlier today, but also quite warm and muggy. Will that trend continue into the weekend? A full look at the weather picture is on deck. I talked to some people who just moved to southern Alberta from southern Ontario, and they say our weather kind of reminds them a little bit of back home. Some of the humidity, the moisture, and close to 30 degrees. Yes, it was quite warm and soggy today. Jeanette Roger is now with all of the weather details. Jeanette, we experienced some showers today, but how's the weekend shaping up?
Well, you know how it's going to be a soggy one. In fact, this is the type of weather that the northern portions of the province were kind of hoping for with all those wildfires up there. But we are looking at 60% chance of showers, and that's pretty much going to be the norm right through Monday evening. Also some risk of thunderstorms in there. But high of 24 degrees on Saturday, up to 27 on Sunday, down to 21 on Monday, high of 26 degrees. There's the sunshine on Tuesday. 18 for a high on Wednesday as we get back down to those teen temperatures. Same thing for Thursday, high of 19 degrees. And those showers, it looks like they're popping back up again with us on Wednesday. So we're definitely looking at intermittent showers next week and showers right through the whole weekend. Okay, so according to the almanac, we are still higher than the average high for this time of year. Average high is 21 degrees, average low is 8 degrees. Make that 22 degrees for an average high, 8 degrees for a low, 33. That was our high temperature on this day. That happened back in 1956 and 1950. It was a record low of 2 degrees. Sun rose this morning at 5:24 a.m. We're looking at a sunset this evening at 9:37 p.m. We're looking at 16 hours and 13 minutes of daylight. Okay, going to be a wet, soggy one on the west coast tomorrow, looking at 60% chance of showers in both Victoria and Vancouver. High of 19 in Victoria, 15 for a high in Vancouver. Alberta. Okay, so we're looking at heat warning in effect for portions of Alberta. That should continue right through the weekend, looking at highs of 29 and beyond and still staying in the teen temperatures overnight. Also, an air advisory is in effect as well for portions of the province with that air quality due to the wildfires and reduced visibility. It's causing all kind of havoc throughout the province there. 30 degrees, though, is the expected high in Edmonton tomorrow with sunshine. We're looking at sunshine in the morning in Calgary, and then there's 60% chance of showers in the afternoon with risk of thunderstorms, and it should be a hot one in Calgary tomorrow as well. As we look to the rest of the prairies, we're seeing that air quality statement in effect as well for Saskatoon with those forest fires as well, wreaking havoc on the visibility as well as the air quality. High of 26, though, in Saskatoon. sunshine, mainly sunny skies in Regina, high of 25 there, 22 for a high expected in Winnipeg with clear skies as well. As we look to the central part of the country, 27 for a high. In Toronto, mix of sun and cloud. Ottawa looking at chance of showers, 23 for a high, and 22 is the expected high on Saturday. In Montreal, looking at some showers there as well. Okay, Fredericton, same thing. All of these cities looking at showers, risk of thunderstorms. Fredericton's high 16, 17 for a high in Halifax, 15 for a high in Charlottetown, and St. John's, Newfoundland is looking at 5 to 10 millimeters of rain on Saturday and a high of only 8 degrees. So there you have it. That is your forecast.
Canada's unemployment rate edged up higher in May for the first time in 9 months. Stats Canada says our jobless rate was 5.2% last month as the economy lost around 17,000 jobs. Canada's unemployment rate hovered around 5% for the past 5 months. That is just above the all-time low of 4.9% hit last summer. Electric vehicles made by General Motors will soon have access to Tesla's large charging network. Beginning next year, GM will join Ford in shifting its electric vehicles to work with around 12,000 of Tesla's 17,000 chargers. In addition, General Motors will adopt a connector that links the electric vehicle to the charging station. Both Detroit automakers are pushing to make Tesla's connector the industry standard. Ford says it plans on bringing the iconic Mustang back to the 24 Hours of Le Mans race. Company officials unveiled their new Mustang Dark Horse-based race car today under massive rebranding of Ford Performance as part of an effort to enter the racing business. In February, Ford announced that it would return to Formula One in 2026 in partnership with reigning world champion Red Bull. The Mustang will enter the GT3 category next year with at least 2 cars competing, hoping to earn an invitation to next year's 24 Hours of Le Mans. Now, here's a look at today's markets. The TSX was down 50 points on the day to finish at 19,892. The Dow was up 43 points to 33,876. The S&P 500 was up 4 on the day to 4298, and the Nasdaq was up 20 points to 13,259. West Texas Intermediate Oil was down $1.12 to $70.17 U.S. per barrel. Natural gas was down 10 cents to $2.25 U.S. Gold was down $4.27 to $19.61.19 U.S. an ounce, and silver was up 6 cents to $24.29 U.S. an ounce. Feed wheat is at $11.16 per bushel, barley's at $8.93, canola's at $15.70, and corn is at $10.26 per bushel. Live cattle were down 55 cents to $178.23. Feeder cattle August contract was up 35 cents to $2.39. And lean hogs were up 20 cents to $87.88. The Canadian dollar was up slightly over the past 24 hours to 74.96 U.S. Recapping one of our top stories, the new cabinet for Alberta Premier Daniel Smith was sworn in today. Daniel Smith is not only Premier, but also the Minister of Intergovernmental Relations. Nate Horner was named the Finance Minister and President of the Treasury Board. Lethbridge East MLA Nathan Newdorf was named the Minister of Affordability and Utilities, along with the Vice Chair of the Treasury Board. Adriana LaGrange was named Health Minister. Dimitrios Nicolaides was the Minister of Education, and Rajan Sani was named Minister of Advanced Education. Mike Ellis was named the Minister of Public Safety and Emergency Services, along with Deputy Premier. Rick Wilson was named the Minister of Indigenous Relations, and Brian Jean the Minister of Energy and Minerals. For a full list of all of today's appointees, be sure to visit the Bridge City News Facebook page. The wildfires have impacted so many Canadians, especially those who've had to leave their homes behind. Coming up, we're going to chat with Stephen Roach, a volunteer with the Salvation Army, who shares his experiences of helping to feed both firefighters and evacuees. Listen, if you see news happening in your community, be sure to send us an email at info@bridgecitynews.ca. We'd love to hear from you.
Here's today's Bridge City News community calendar. Get ready, Lethbridge. Target Hunger is taking place Saturday, June 10th. Yellow bags have been dropped off to homes across our generous city for people to fill with non-perishable food items that will be distributed to our local food banks. Have your yellow bags out for pickup by 10 a.m. For more information, visit targethungerlethbridge.com. The Family Center downtown Lethbridge is providing a weekly opportunity for dads, uncles, and grandfathers to play and connect with their children. Me and My Dad takes place on Saturdays from 10 to 11:30 a.m., featuring fun, brain-building activities for male caregivers to play along with their kids. This program is free and open to children under 12. For more information and to register, visit famcenter.ca. And that's today's Bridge City News Community Calendar.
The wildfires raging in central and northern Alberta have not only contributed to poor air quality, but have wreaked havoc on many communities. Thousands of people have had to evacuate their homes, leaving them displaced. But on the flip side, hundreds of volunteers have stepped up to the plate to help those in need. And one of them is Stephen Roach, who spent 3 weeks using his skills as a chef to feed thousands of evacuees. He joins me now. Stephen, welcome to Bridge City News. So great to have you on today.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
I'm glad to be here.
Oh, I'm so happy. Okay, so Stephen, where there's tragedy, the triumph of the human spirit shines through, and this certainly is the case for you. So you spent 3 weeks volunteering your time up north. So why don't you tell us about your experience? For starters, you're a volunteer with the Salvation Army, right?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
And it was an experience that I'll never forget, because I was in places that I've always wanted to see, the northern parts of Canada, and it was nice to actually experience them and helping people in distress and serving their communities.
Oh, 100%. And you were first put on standby, right, to go help with the fire evacuees. How did this all start? How long ago did this begin?
It was almost 4 weeks ago. I was put on standby, and I got a call. I just got back from doing a motorcycle ride when I got a call that I was to be in High Prairie for the next morning for breakfast. So,
wow. Not just to be there for breakfast, but to cook breakfast, right?
yes, to cook breakfast for 300 people at the site and where I was in Fowler.
Okay, so you just dropped everything and you just went?
Yes, I did. I called Don, and he got me the keys to open the garage to get the truck, and we said a little prayer together, spirit, and then I was off on my way to northern Alberta.
Right, and when you say Don, you mean Don Bladen of the Salvation Army here in Lethbridge, and the truck would be the kitchen truck, right, that you worked out of. It's a mobile kitchen, basically. So you drove this mobile kitchen all the way up there. How many hours did that take? That's not just up the road. That's way up there.
It was. It's like about 13-hour drive or so, and I had a little stopover in Edmonton, and then I got up and I was back on the road again. And I arrived there at a little after 8 o'clock in the morning, and then I was told, "This is where I'm going. Here's the address. There's your food truck behind you." And off you went. So.
And people were starving, and they were probably very excited to see you show up.
It was it was an experience, especially because it's something I've done before, but not on this extent. Because I've cooked all over the place, and being able to help people in distress and be able to mentor people with the Spirit of God, it was even a lot more enjoyable for me.
Yeah, so you're an executive chef by trade. So is this why you were chosen to go?
No, I don't know why I was chosen to go. I was just given the reins one day, and that was it. And off I went.
All right. So you spent 3 weeks in this kitchen truck. So you went first to High Prairie, right? But that's not the only place. You actually moved around a little bit, right?
Yes. And then I went from High Prairie to Fowler, and then I went from Fowler up to Yellowknife, Northwest Territories.
Incredible. And this was the first time that Salvation Army had ever been deployed to the Northwest Territories, right?
Yes. We were the ambassadors for the Salvation Army in the Northwest Territories.
That's incredible. Now, did you personally see any smoke or fire on your way up there? What was your experience like?
The only fire I seen was when I left Edmonton and I took Highway 33 north. It was smoldering on the side of the highway on my way to High Prairie. But otherwise than that, I didn't see no fires whatsoever, but very smoky in places where I was, that you had to wear a mask half the time while you were in the kitchen cooking.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine what an uncomfortable situation too when you're dealing with the smoke and trying to get all these people fed, and the highways were open for you, so you didn't run into that problem, right?
No, we never ran into that problem whatsoever. My GPS just told me if there was fires that you couldn't go, so it took me alternate routes. So that was the easiest way to do it for me.
Yeah, and Stephen, had you ever done anything like this before?
No, I've been stationed at a lot of different places. I was with the Canadian Coast Guards. I was stationed in Frobisher Bay, Baffin Island, and stuff like that. But this was different. Yeah, way different.
I can imagine. Now, you provided us with some pictures of your kitchen truck, and it looks amazing. It looks cozy, though. So were you used to working in such confined spaces? I'm assuming that when you were an executive chef, you had a bit more kitchen to work with.
Yeah, but when I was stationed with the Coast Guard, my kitchen wasn't much bigger than what the truck is on board the ship. So you had a small kitchen.
Okay, so you were the perfect man for the job.
I'm not claustrophobic, put it that way.
Yeah, and I understand it's a fully equipped kitchen, too. It's amazing.
Yes, it is. It's an amazing kitchen. And it was a good truck to work out of. And by the looks of it, if it stays the way it's going right now, I'm supposed to be deployed next week again for another 2 weeks up in High Prairie again. So
Incredible. And so you did all the meals for the firefighters and the displaced people, 3 meals a day, right?
3 meals a day, yeah.
All right. You must have heard some incredible and heartbreaking stories from these people.
Yes, I did. Especially when I met some of the leading people from the different tribes that were up north, like the Métis and stuff like that. It was nice to sit down with some of the elders and find out where they were from and how they were coping. Like they were having a hard time trying to find out information for their own people if they could go back to the reservations where they are and stuff like that. That was difficult. And I had a gentleman with me, his name is Ed Dean, and he's a pastor. So he sat down with a lot of them and talked and prayed with them and stuff like that, which was, for me, was very energetic for me, because it was some days you get down and you sit down with Ed and have a nice prayer, and then you felt like you were regenerated again and you go right back to work again. So it was great.
That's incredible. I would imagine these people were very scared, and some of them must have had quite the stories to tell you.
Yes, they did. And what was nice about it in Yellowknife is that a lot of the people that were displaced, when we were serving the food, did come and help on the serving line and did serve their own people. Like, it was nice to see that they wanted to get involved, because they're so used to working, and all of a sudden they're sitting around doing nothing. So I just cook all the food and hand it in to them, and they'd help serve the food. So it was a good experience.
Oh, yeah, and it gave them that feeling of productivity, too. I can imagine just sitting there in limbo. They must have been terrified. And I'm sure you became so attached to some of them, too.
Yes, I did. I became attached to a lot of them, because I made new friends, put it that way, and new connections that if I ever want to go up to Yellowknife, I have places that I can stop in and visit, a place to stay, I was told. So
That's lovely. Were any of these people able to get back into their homes while you were there?
Yes, there was only, from what I could understand, I think there was 10 or 12 families that lost their homes, but everybody was able to. By the time that we left to come back to Alberta, there was nobody left. There was only about 30 people that were still waiting for transportation out of Yellowknife back to their homes.
Oh, that's incredible. Wow, I feel so bad for those people that lost their homes. That's terrible. And my understanding is you cooked for the firefighters as well, right? But you didn't necessarily get to meet them?
No, I did not. No, because they were an hour and a half drive from where I was stationed with the truck. So we had a vehicle that just picked up all the food and brought it out to the firefighters. And then they had a hall where they could go and serve the food for them. And then 3 meals a day. It was like.
You must have been so busy.
Oh, yes, I was.
Like
I tell you,
nonstop.
when you hit your bed at nighttime, you didn't have to worry about falling asleep because you were dead exhausted.
I bet. And your days probably started really early because, I mean, breakfast, that starts early.
6 o'clock.
Wow.
6 o'clock in the morning. You had that breakfast ready for 8 o'clock. So it took you at least 2 hours because there's a lot of process with the truck that you had to do before you could actually start your breakfast. Because it's a kitchen on wheels, so you have a lot of little ins and outs that you have to make sure everything is working properly before you can even start cooking.
I know, I'm sure you had to wake up at 3 in the morning or something. So you did all the cooking, but who provided the food or the money for the food? Where did that come from?
All the food was provided. When I was in High Prairie and Fowler, all of our food came through Cisco, through the that's who the Salvation Army has a contract with to provide the food with. And then when I was in Yellowknife, we went to a directory to a distributor in Yellowknife, which was easier for me to make menus for a 2-day or 4-day stint. And he'd order the food in for me, and that way I knew that I'd always have fresh food every day. So.
And you made sure that you bought locally, right, to keep it in the community?
Yes. In Yellowknife, we bought everything locally. So we've even cleaned out some stores some days on products that we couldn't find through the distributor, but we could find in a store like the Co-op or other places. So we went in, and the produce manager was not very happy with us some days because we took a lot of his produce, like fresh produce.
Oh. What are you going to do, though? You have all these people, hundreds of people, I guess, that were kind of, it was a community center, right, where they were sort of living.
We were doing a little over 300 meals per breakfast, lunch, and dinner, 3 times a day.
Okay. And you were able to have the freedom to cook what you wanted to and what you needed to? That's incredible.
That was nice.
That is really,
There was no
really
menu.
nice.
I made up my own menu as we went along, so which was easier because that way you knew that the product that you were serving was fresh and.
Oh, incredible. This must have been probably one of the most rewarding experiences for you.
It was very gratifying for me. As a Christian, I believe that we're here to serve, and that for me was the biggest I've ever served before.
Yeah, I can imagine. Absolutely. What's next for you, Stephen? I guess you said you're sort of on standby. You're waiting to go back to High Prairie next week.
I don't know. I'd like to take a trip back to Nova Scotia on my motorcycle, but I'm just waiting to see what happens.
You're a man of mystery, for sure.
And then to stay that way.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's hope that these wildfires subside and that everything gets back to normal and you won't have to go back to High Prairie and do this all over again.
I hear that there's supposed to be rain for the next few days. That might help the situation.
Stephen, I'm sure that those northern communities are so grateful for you. And we're so thankful for your service and what you're doing. And I mean, if you do go back up there, like you mentioned before, you might be able to see some of those people that you became so attached to.
Yes, I hope so.
Yeah.
It would be nice to be able to reconnect with a lot of the people that I helped while I was up there.
Yeah. What was the general feeling when you were there? Were they scared? Was it like apprehension, anxiety, or was it just kind of like, this is how it is?
When we first got up there, it was, they didn't know what to expect with us arriving up there to do what we were sent up there to do. But the second day when you had people come to the truck and saying thank you, and they wanted to come up into the truck and have a look of the kitchen facilities and stuff like that, it made me feel a lot at ease with myself and with them. So that way I knew I was doing something good for the community itself by serving meals to them. So.
What were some of the most heartbreaking stories that you were hearing?
People talking about losing everything that they own. That was very hard, like especially when they left with the only thing they had was a small little bag and the clothes on their back. So that was very hard. It bothered me to see people in that state of, you know, something that I've never seen before until I went up there, because I've always been on the other side of the fence. Like I used to be a firefighter, so you see one side, and then I do this, and now I'm on the opposite side of it, trying to help the people that are very in distress of.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we appreciate what you're doing there. I'm sure that they do as well. And thank you for coming on today and sharing your story with us. We really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. I hope we can do this again sometime.
Absolutely. Let me know when you're back from High Prairie. That was Stephen Roach, a volunteer with the Salvation Army. He's an executive chef turned volunteer cook for hundreds of displaced wildfire evacuees. We're so grateful for him.
You know, over the last few years, we've seen a lot of challenges and people have really struggled, especially coming out of the pandemic. You add inflation into the mix, and it makes things even worse. Many of our young people are having a tough time dealing with depression and anxiety right now. So how, as parents, can we really help our kids be more confident and resilient? Today's guest may have some suggestions for us. Dr. Kathy Cook is a child development specialist and president of Celebrate Kids, Inc. Her latest book is called Resilient Kids, Raising Them to Embrace Life with Confidence. And she joins us now from Texas. Kathy, welcome to Bridge City News.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Absolutely. So Kathy, what really motivated you to write Resilient Kids?
Well, your introduction was really appropriate. During the COVID pandemic crisis, I saw too many kids defining themselves by loss, not by what they had, not by their strengths and their victories, but what they did not have. And that's not appropriate. I wanted to make sure that parents knew that they could help their kids stand back up and walk out of the negative circumstances that they found themselves in. It's so important.
So how has the pandemic really impacted our younger generation? Maybe we can begin with the fact that a lot of the kids were isolated from their friends and their classmates.
Right, and that's not how we're designed, right? We're designed for community, we're designed for fellowship. So they weren't aware of that. And a lot of us are the type of people who learn well with other people. We love to brainstorm and network and have those kind of sidebar conversations, even in the hallway and at lunch. And you took all of that away, and they were faced to do what we're doing here, looking into a camera, and it's just not ideal. So kids began to doubt their ability. They began to doubt their future, I think. And now depression, suicidal thoughts, that was all there prior to the pandemic, but it was amplified certainly during this crisis moment.
I guess when people are isolated, they don't have that interaction, that human connection with people. We can actually physically touch that individual, give your best friend a hug. That makes it that much more of a challenge. So, Kathy, how would you really define resiliency, and why is it so important for kids today?
Yeah, thanks for asking. I define it as readily recovering from difficulty, readily recovering, not staying down in the valley, not having a long-lasting pity party, but choosing to stand up and walk out of the defeat and the despair and the difficulty, running from a bully, knowing that that bully doesn't define me. So readily recovering, it starts as a choice, becomes a learned ability the more often we do it, and then it becomes a part of our character. And that's so critical, because then even when mom and dad aren't around to encourage me, I know that I can stand up and walk out and become the whole person that I was designed to be. Critically important. Without resiliency, we don't learn, we don't take risks, we don't grow, we don't develop a deep faith and a really good character.
So how can children best understand the real difference between failure and a mistake, and maybe learn, especially from their mistakes?
Yeah, it's so valuable, isn't it? We have to talk about it. They're not going to learn that unless we demonstrate it. So moms and dads and teachers and pastors and people like us who are out in the community, we need to understand that we're not perfect, and we need to let our kids see that we're not perfect so that they can admit to us that they're not perfect. Kids tell me all the time that if they think their mom and dad are perfect human beings, then they have a hard time admitting to their mom and dad that they're not. So let's do age appropriate, developmentally appropriate admission of failure and mistakes. I forgot to turn in a report to my supervisor. He's not happy with me. I'm going to have to earn back his trust because I made a mistake, and I'm unhappy. So I prayed about it and I apologize, and I'm going to get better at that time management factor. So we can talk to our kids about that. One of the things that's really valuable is to talk with our kids about words like mistakes and failure. Too many kids think that mistakes mean that they're stupid and failure means that they're bad. You and I know that's not the truth. Mistakes mean that we maybe haven't had enough experience, we haven't practiced enough, maybe we didn't study enough, but we're not stupid. And if we fail, I don't even like that word. It's not that we're bad. We have to talk about it. Define it in your home. In our home, this is what we mean by those words.
You know, it's a real challenge as well. I'm a parent too. I've got 2 kids, and it was really tough, especially when they were younger. When you see them going down a path, it's going to lead to destruction, because you went down the same path yourself. You made the same mistakes. I don't want my kids making the same mistakes that I did, but sometimes as a parent, you got to let go and let God.
Mm-hmm. That's exactly right. Put them in God's care. Provide the boundaries that you can, but you know what? Kids have to learn on their own that foolishness results in consequences that are uncomfortable. If we overprotect our kids and we helicopter and we're a drone, looking over them and making sure they don't ever make a mistake, then they're not going to be strong. They'll be weak and they'll come running to us every time they're in trouble. And I doubt that that's what parents want.
So you want to really develop character within your children, I guess, so they can respond to some of the hardships in the world a little more appropriately.
Absolutely. Don't bubble wrap them, save the bubble wrap for your grandmother's, beautiful vase, if you will. But let your kids know, hey, I'm here for you. I'm protecting and guiding and providing for you. If you choose to do that, there will be a consequence, and then I'll help you talk that through at the end.
Now, Kathy, you write that there are actually 5 core things a child needs to really build resiliency. What would they be?
Oh, super. Security. Who can I trust? If they don't trust us, they won't take risks, and then they won't learn. So are we honest, and are we there for them? Identity. Who am I? I'm bright and creative and careful and diligent. Your kids need to know their strengths so that they can rely on themselves in those challenging moments. Belonging. Who wants me? They have to have relationship skills and friendship skills. And they have to understand who to walk away from that's not good for them and who to walk toward who would be a blessing. So security, identity, belonging leads to purpose. Why am I alive? When kids know that they were created on purpose with purpose, they will develop their strengths and they will see that a challenge or a mistake is something they can overcome because there's a bigger picture to life. And I was created to be a someone and to do something valuable. So I need to step up and become that. And then we get to competence. What do I do well? Everybody's created on purpose with good gifts that they can use to be a blessing to others. So we need to help them see their beauty and see their strength, which is wrapped up in their purpose, so that they'll be willing to overcome the challenge, bounce back, and become who they were created to be.
So how can parents really have healthy and honest conversations with their children concerning their needs?
Yeah, be available, first of all, my friend. Be available. Put your phone down. Prioritize your kids as is appropriate. Not that they're the center of your universe, but that they matter to you. Let them know that. Feel their pain first. Kids tell me all the time that we are unsafe to them if we problem solve too quickly. So you develop resiliency when you feel their pain. Bethany, I'm sad with you. I'm so sorry that happened. Jeremiah, that must have been a scary thing. Man, I'm sad for you. Feel their pain, acknowledge that it was difficult for them, and then help them solve the problem. Help them figure out what they can do next. Don't necessarily do it for them, but problem solve, talk to them, brainstorm with them, make a list maybe of 3 or 4 things they can do differently in the next 2 or 3 days. So be available. Talk in the dark. Also, just a quick recommendation, talk in the dark. Kids tell me they don't want to look into our faces when they know that we're going to be disappointed. They don't want to see the pain in our eyes. So sometimes they'll be more vulnerable in a dark space, all alone, without the siblings around.
So you believe that parents must really pay attention to what children believe about their mistakes and failures, and maybe as parents, try to encourage our kids not to let the lows get too low.
Yeah, come on. So true. It's a season, right? They come and they go. So share how you walked out of your valleys. Share that maybe you distanced yourself from a person who was a negative naysayer and you knew that you had value and you knew that that person was not good for you because he said, you'll never amount to that. Who do you think you are to achieve that? No, you distance yourself from people who are not healthy for you. You stop going to the places that are not life affirming for you. You stop listening to music and watching the shows that bring you down into the valley, and you make sure that you know you're a person of worth who's worthy of blessing, and so you step out into that reality.
Now, many people, Kathy, would argue that spiritual resilience might be the most important resilience of all. How can we as parents be assured that our kids don't give up on God, but learn to trust Him more and really mature in their own faith?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. I wish that we could assure it, right? I wish that we could have these perfect little boundaries and put kids in a box and they'll never doubt, because that's not possible. But there are some things we can do, and I'm glad you asked. I do think it's critically important that we talk about the relationship with Jesus is what drives us to our behavior. We worship, we read and meditate on the Word of God, we pray, we serve, we give, we attend church, because we're in a relationship with our best friend. We love God, the creator of it all, the author of the life letter, love letter, the Bible. We love His Son, Jesus, for all that He's done for us. So I don't pray to check it off my list. I don't read the Bible every morning so I feel like a good girl. I read it because it's a life letter, love letter that's going to build me up and offer me opportunity to walk on the right path. When you teach your children that we do what we do because of who we are and because it changes who we are, then they take that with them. And it's not a church that they go to, but it's a behavior that becomes a part of who they are. Also, very quickly, the names of God and the names of Christ are really important. Our kids need to know the whole of God. If they only know one little thing about God and one little name of Christ, and they feel like that part failed them, then they give up. So make sure your kids know all about God and Jesus as much as possible.
So what's your suggestion to parents whose children may be influenced by others with different beliefs?
Well, first of all, praise God that you know that. So if you know that I'm really proud of you, because that means you're paying attention, and that's really cool. Many teenagers will begin to look for other voices because they want to know if other people agree with you. Is my dad the only one who thinks that church is essential? So don't be afraid if they start to look for other voices, but certainly teach them discernment and be aware. Why would you talk to your soccer coach? Well, first of all, why would you allow your kid to play soccer with a coach that doesn't have a biblical worldview? That's a whole nother speech, whole nother presentation we could talk about. But know who your kids are listening to, know the lyrics of the songs that they're listening to, the people who they're hanging out with. Don't be alarmed, teach them discernment and say, hey, why do you believe your coach is right? You know, convince me your coach is right when your mom and I are raising you in these ways. Have discussion, have dialogue, have conversation.
Why do you think it is, I find this kind of odd as well as a parent, that sometimes a stranger or a new friend has more of an influence on our children than we do? You know, our children may be suffering from low self-esteem, and I as a father will say to my daughter, you know what, you're beautiful and you're smart, you know, you're going to go quite far in this life. And she's like, I don't believe it from my dad. But then somebody she just met said, you know, you're beautiful and smart from what I got to know. And they believe that person over their own father. Why do you think that is?
That's frustrating, right? You know, kids tell me, you know, our dad has to say that. He's our dad. He has to. He doesn't have a choice. He has to believe good things. So they're looking for affirmation. They're looking for, is my dad right? Can I really believe him? I would also say that moms and dads, we can get better at giving them the proof. You're going to amount to a lot because you're a diligent young lady. I see that you're careful and that you care about details, and your nonfiction writing is accurate. You proofread, you make sure your resources are right. I wonder if you could follow in my footsteps and be a journalist. A lot of kids doubt because the voices are loud from the other side. So provide the proof that you're right, specifically compliment and specifically correct, and they'll keep coming to you for insight. They do want to believe their parents. They really do.
So show some examples, absolutely. Now, Kathy, you had an amazing opportunity to observe a newborn giraffe when you were in Africa recently. Now, how did this really reinforce your beliefs about letting children struggle to learn what they need rather than, like you mentioned earlier, bubble protect or bubble wrap our kids?
Right. Oh, it was so much fun. I was in Nigeria, Africa, and about 10 minutes after the baby was born, we were there. The mother was huge and standing over the baby and attentive. And every time we clicked a camera, she would pop her head over in our direction. She was so aware of what the baby was doing. And the baby was down on the ground, camouflaged, trying desperately to raise its neck. It would raise it and would flop back down like a piece of spaghetti. It was so amazing to watch this. But you know what was so interesting? The mom never helped except to lick a little bit of the fluid off the baby. The mother's neck would come down and lick and almost caress with the tongue. That mother could have taken its big head, put it under the baby and lifted it to its feet. But that mom knew that baby needed to learn on its own how to stand up and how to keep standing. If the baby wouldn't have done it on its own, its muscles never would have been strong enough to hold the weight of itself up. So we have to watch and protect and guide and be available and be present and let our kids know, hey, I'm on your side. I'm here to guide and protect and provide, but I'm not going to do everything for you because you need to learn for yourself how to make it happen. Yeah, it was a profound example of the ideal relationship.
I can just imagine. Now, you mentioned guide, protect, provide, but also being optimistic. I think it's really important to share with our kids, a sense of optimism. How important is that as they develop?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. I was actually stunned when I did my research at how very important it is. I've always known that. I think believers need to be optimistic. I think there's a lot of reasons to be hopeful and optimistic as we look at today, tomorrow, and the far distant future. So is your glass half full? One of the resources I read, I love this. Doesn't really matter how full your glass is, just have a pitcher nearby. Like, are you the resource? Are you going to be able to fill your kids up? So to be full of hope, to look for what's right, to have a solution-focused mind, not a problem-centered orientation. It's a key. Your kids want to know if they come to you with a heartache, that you will love them in their moment of defeat and help them when they're ready to listen to your solutions. Yeah, to be optimistic and hopeful. It's essential. It's not easy. The world's a mess, but we can speak life into the mess and be part of the difference making.
Amen to that. And I think about with God too, how he loves us unconditionally. That's what we should do with our children as well.
Amen.
Dr. Kathy Cook is the president of Celebrate Kids, Inc. and author of Resilient Kids, Raising Them to Embrace Life with Confidence. Kathy, thanks so much for joining us today from Texas.
It was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
On behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News, I'm Hal Roberts. God bless and thanks for watching.